Well, we don't have a quorum, so I no reason to call the meeting to order, but Heather, we'll let you go ahead with your presentation. If we've got any questions, we'll ask.
I need to get closer, you guys.
I was gonna say, you can get closer. I won't be able to hear you.
So basically, just wanted to sort of give you an update when I think all the meetings almost have been had, or most of the meetings have been had up to this point, were made prior to the final guidance, maybe with the exception of one or so. But what we have found out, in addition to the final guidance that came out from the U.S. Treasury, we've also had a lot of questions answered by the state audit, the state comptroller's office, CTAS, different sources, to sort of see how we want to proceed on a lot of this to limit any kind of liability we would have in repaying money or not handling it the proper way. So basically, with that being said, the biggest thing I want to make sure everybody understands is that what the big change from the interim guidance to the final guidance was a lot of decisions were being made, not just our county, municipalities all over the nation, based on interim guidance. The interim guidance just had 4 categories that you could spend the money. That was negative or health impacts, premium pay, infrastructure, and then there was a revenue loss, which you actually had to calculate that. For us, we were only around not even $500,000 at that point. Then what the final guidance came out and said basically that, I'll just sort of read there, that there is a standard allowance now being given up to $10 million in aggregate, not to exceed the award amount during the program. Roughly our award amount was $2.7 million, rounded there. But, and recipients may use the funds, so that means we could use the entire 100% of our money, may use the funds up to the amount of the revenue loss for government services, generally services traditionally provided by recipient governments or government services, unless the Treasury has stated otherwise. And there's very few exceptions, most of them pertain to like debt repayment, things along those lines. So with that being said, I have attended webinars from both the White House and different state where they're basically recommending that we, well, any municipality that has 10 million or less, claim it as revenue loss. Because when you claim it as revenue loss, it eases the reporting requirements, it eases all the subrecipient monitoring. That way, I was on one webinar being held by the White House, and basically they just said, if you have any of those categories, whether it be premium pay, capital, those are all categories that could be, they're all classified also under the revenue loss. So there's no benefit to a county classifying it out into the individual codes. You should just do the revenue loss. So that is how we already did the first reporting that was due in the spring. So that being said, that's how we're classifying everything. It gives us a lot more flexibility. So then the questions started coming up, okay, well with the nonprofits, they were the big question mark, how are we gonna handle that? So I'll get into that a little bit more too. We've already started establishing the capital, because initially we couldn't use capital until U.S. Treasury came out with that. So we've already started, in our original budget, the commission approved back on June 20th, they've already started budgeting for capital. So we've already started doing a little of it. So that was the first point I just wanted to mention, that was the big change, that it went to revenue loss, so basically it gave us a lot more flexibility. With that being said, I went ahead and did a spending summary. That's page 1 on the agenda packet. That basically, the first top section there, that just shows you everything that was spent in the prior fiscal year. And we only had spending in fiscal year 21-22, up to June 30th. That is when the fiscal year ends. And we spent about $943,000. All of that was actually financial support. That was additional pay that we gave to the employees. And that sort of breaks it down for you. They were all county employees, highway employees, school employees, with the exception of, we also did volunteer fire rescue services. That had all been approved by commission. So that has all been paid out to each of those entities. Each of those entities did follow up with me, even though we don't have subrecipient monitoring for the state and the federal guidelines. We still did in-house where they have sent me their payment register, so we know as a county that everything was paid to the people they were supposed to pay to. So that's what's been spent thus far. Then the next section, the 22-23, those first 4 line items that are in italics, those are the things that are already in the existing budget that was approved by County Commission on June 20th. Those are all capital projects. So those, we already have them in the budget. We'll start to be working with those, our office will start to work with those departments to start to get those items purchased in this fiscal year. So from there, we would move down on the agenda. Just want to give you a status of the things that start up with the first one there, the handicap swing sets at Dyers Creek and Dover City Park. So we want to go ahead and get that into our budget. That was going to be, the sheriff was going to be working with our office and coordinating those swing sets. Jeff Hancock, I guess, had already given his approval. I know this had already come before the committee. This has been approved through the committee already. But just to sort of give you where we are, I'm not real sure yet if we'll just be trying to turn the 8,000 over to the U.S. Corps, or we're going to actually be purchasing the swing sets ourselves and then working with the Corps to have them installed. So there's still a little bit of question mark of how we're going to do it, but we're at least ready to go ahead and put it into the budget. We know it's an allowed use. The next one, the financial support for the state medical center employees. That we had hoped to get this done before June. When the whole ARPA first came out, the premium pay was the big thing that we all were working on. To give premium pay, even the interim guidance allowed you to give premium pay to other employees. However, just because the federal government tells you you can pay a federal employee doesn't mean we can just cut a check to an employee that is not an employee of the county. So if it's a state employee, we can't just cut them a check. We don't know what their tax requirements are. They aren't even in our system as an employee. We have to actually give, just like we do with the fire department, we cut the fire department the check. Then the fire department dispersed it to their employees. Same thing even with the highway and the school. Even though they're subcomponents of the county, we actually, our office cut the check to the accounting departments in those 2 areas because they're not in our payroll system. I mean, Eric Watkins is a school employee. He is not in my county payrolls. So we're sort of in a situation where we weren't sure how we were going to do this. We talked to state audit, we talked to CTAS. They said you need to work with the state and actually pay the state of Tennessee, and then have the state of Tennessee cut those checks to those employees. So that is, there are 12 of those employees that are state employees over at our Stewart County Community Medical Center. We were glad to hear the state came back and said, yes, we'll work with you. We will cut these checks. So then the next question was, well, here's what we would need to know. What is the retirement? What is the federal income tax? Are you going to charge us unemployment, or is it just gross wages? There's a lot of questions to be answered. So we've been waiting. We've been going back and forth. The last email I have from a Mr. James Work in the state of Tennessee on June 28th was the last correspondence I received. He was just updating me to tell me that they're still working on it. They met today. They've got to go through a number of steps, including the HR commissioner and the TV health commissioner. So it's not a simple process. It sounds like it might be, but it's not. There's a lot of little counting things. So we are simply waiting on the state of Tennessee to get back to us and tell us what's the next step so we can go ahead and get this check cut to them. But I do know the amount. Karen Anderson has worked with our office. It's 12 employees, so we know the gross wages is $48,000. Then we can estimate their state, if everybody had state retirement, I can do a rough estimation, $60,000 should be max. So I go ahead and want to get that into the budget as well, so we can at least be ready once the state of Tennessee comes back and says, okay, we're ready for you to cut us the check. The next one is the school nurse employees. This was a situation where the Oversight Committee had approved it. It went to the full commission back in April of this year, but then there was a lot of discussion about other items that were being brought in that with the highway and different uses of capital, so the whole ARPA spending got tabled. That included those 4 nurses. So those 4 nurses had never been approved by the county commission. So talking with the mayor, he wanted to try to bring that back up and try to get those 4 nurses because they were just sort of as part of that whole big thing that got tabled. So that would roughly be.
Let's back up just a bit. So over at the health department employees, have we not given them something before? Or have we, this is the only money?
This is the only. Now there's 2 different sets of, there's a little confusion, because there's 2 different sets of department employees over there. We already paid the 9 people that are county employees.
Okay,
that work off the
that's where I was
grant.
confused.
Yeah.
Okay,
Those are county employees.
I thought we had taken care of that.
It's confusing as somebody who's just says, I work there. Well, you might work at the health department, but you're either a
Paid
county
for the state.
employee or you're a state
Okay,
employee. or
okay,
one of
I
the
got
two.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That answers that question.
Yes, we paid the 9 county.
Okay.
There's still 12 state employees that Karen would like to get
Okay.
that bonus, yeah.
Okay.
The school nurse, like I said, that's just the 4, so we're just wanting to bring that back up to the full commission and try to get that approved. If so, we would pay the school system, they're their employees, and then the school system would pay those 4 people and work with me on getting the payment information after. So after that, we're really into the nonprofits. That was a very big question. I've been going back with the state probably over a year now. So with this change in the guidance, the state actually sent out, one of the auditors came to my office back in late May, and what they are saying is if you have nonprofits, that is a general government service. So what you need to do is you need to treat it exactly like you treat the nonprofits that we put in our regular budget that we pass every year. So the 200 and some thousand, I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head, that we've already approved for our normal nonprofit charitable organization groups. All we would do is go ahead and amend that resolution. That would be one of the steps. Then we would go ahead and add in all these groups, and we would also have to, of course, amend the budget, and then we would have to put a notice back in the paper, because I have, every time that the budget is approved, if you've never noticed, there'll be a notice in the paper. That's part of the TCA code, that we just publish who we're paying that's a nonprofit charitable organization in that fiscal year. So those 2 things would have to be done. Then we also have to just make sure that we're following the TCA code 59109. Basically, if you look at page 2, I gave you, this is what we use. We give this, we ever have, say, a new nonprofit charitable organization that approaches the mayor or our office. This is what I give them. It's just sort of a summary of what's in the TCA code, like number 3 and number 4 come right off the TCA code. But in addition, we have to have some basic information. We need to know who they are. Actually, the chief financial officer is part of the TCA code. We need to know the fiscal year. And then something that was added that's not part of the TCA code is number 2. And that was something that the commission actually brought to me probably 7 or 8 years ago that they wanted our office to start doing. And we do that right before we go to pay them. We go out to the Tennessee Department state website and check that they are still registered and they're not expired. They're current on the charitable website with the state of Tennessee. So if we were to do all these nonprofits, those are the minimum things we would have to do. So our office would still handle in the same way. We would get a new resolution put in front of the commission. We were hoping to do that maybe, if everything went well tonight, as early as the commission meeting, which is the 26th. Is that right? Yeah, 26th. But the big question from there is, I know there was, I read through all the minutes of all your meetings that you've had up to this point. There's been a whole lot of talk on the monitoring and all that. So what we would need to know is, this is the minimum requirements that are required by the state and federal. Once the final guidance changed with this $10 million allowance, and we're using it as freed up money from revenue replacement, there is no state portal that we're gonna be using to send all this through. It's basically just, if additional monitoring was to be done, it would have to be told to our office by the commission, and then we would have to see if it's something that we can do, or do we need to hire somebody. So, but this is what we would be doing, so you're aware. Anything additional, we would just need to know. I think that was pretty much the gist of the nonprofits. Once we get all that done, then we can start to release. I know we have their proposal letters, the mayor had all that on file, but we would be asking them for another letter, just because this has been over a year now, so we would want something current, a current date, current, if any changes in their staff as far as who their chief financial officer is, et cetera. We would get all that current.
One of the questions that was during one of those meetings was, especially with the animal welfare, was, if they're gonna build kennels, are they gonna build it on private property? Are they gonna build it on property that belongs to the nonprofit? I don't know, that may be a Charles Parker
So
question.
that's not, yeah, I mean, from my side, it's just gonna be purely a financial. If there's a legal question, you're right, we're gonna have to get the county attorney involved.
Right. That was one of the questions, and it will come up again. I'll promise it's gonna come up again. Can we give them money to build kennels on private property?
Probably not.
Yeah, I was gonna say that will be a big question, and I would think that we would need a legal opinion on that. If you don't mind getting one from Charles.
Absolutely, thank you, Mr.
it's a lot of money there going to them, and I don't begrudge it, I'm not saying that, but, you know, it's 40, 80, $110,000.
Yeah, and I do know from looking at the proposal letter that came, Humane Society, I guess, was going to take an active role, which we work, they're the point group in a lot of cases, but they were gonna be the point person for those 5, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but from that letter, we worked with Susan Bowman a lot of
Sure,
last few
sure,
years.
yeah, I
She
know
was gonna
Susan.
be a point person to sort of monitor the spending and overseeing the 5 groups. She was sort of being the spokesperson for the 5 groups.
I know Miss Susan, and I trust her.
They can do what they want with this money.
I mean, as far as, if it runs, it's the same as just any other charitable, because once it's approved, there's no real follow-up unless we can implement a policy to have follow-up, but we would have to know what that would be. But I mean, when we do the normal resolution with the charitable, they have to give that initial letter to tell me they have to have the use of the funds, they have to make sure they're registered, they're still a nonprofit, they're current, and then they have to have that annual financial report filed in June 5th through the county clerk's office, and they give us a copy too. But outside of that, that is the requirements for the TCA code.
So for us, really, monitoring is all we can do, whether we do it or whether we hire somebody to do it.
Yes.
We can't tell them what to do with the money.
No, unless you're gonna put some kind of specific, county
Stipulation.
policy or stipulation on it, yeah.
Now, when they made the request, Mr. Chairman, they actually said what they were going to spend the
Sure,
money on.
sure.
And so, you could, as the finance director said, since it's been a year, we might get them to resubmit that request to, just to solidify what they're gonna spend the money on. And then this
Absolutely.
committee, on some of the smaller donations, this committee could suggest that receipts be given, maybe for what they say they're gonna spend it on. The biggest request is the Athletic Association and the $250,000. Everything else, the Historical Society comes right after that with $80,000, and they want to build an upper and a lower deck on the W.B. Sykes Museum. So that's really where there might be some oversight required, that major amount of money to get those projects completed. So that's something to consider.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, you got any questions, buddy?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, could we have a representative from the Athletic Association here? Did we suspend the rules and let him?
I was gonna say, we
Well,
don't
we're
have,
not into-
we don't have
we're
any.
not in- that's right.
Ricky, you wanna say anything?
Ricky, the $250,000 that we want to try to, the commission has already approved to send to the Athletic Association. Are we pretty much on the same page with just drainage and?
I don't think so.
Could you explain how the Athletic Association is wanting to spend that money?
We have not turned in a proposal
Right.
as far as AESC goes. We have not. Now, we did draft one the other night, talking about what we need from like, what we really, really need down to what we kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like from worst to least worst, I guess you'd say. We do have a lot of projects, lights being number one. The drainage that everybody keeps talking about is not that big a deal. A couple hours on a backhoe and some riprap will take care of that. But as far as in the actual park, the ball field park, the lights are the number one issue with with that. And then, of course, we had, one of our dugouts got, a couple of our dugouts got tore apart. We're thinking about changing them from block to wire or chain link so the wind will just, go through it so we won't have any more damage. Planting trees, along that berm there to kind of help the wind maybe. Anything we can do to help the damage from coming into the park. We was gonna plant trees, we had the lights, dugout, we need a couple of backstops.
So what you're saying?
The building, of course, is in sort of bad shape. I mean, it's not in like, it's
The
it's
concessions,
occupiable.
concessions building?
Yeah, the concession building, but that's kind of like down the list of stuff. I did get prices on demolition of that and material to build it back, but I have not got a labor price on somebody building it. But we got all kinds of stuff in that letter we'll be getting.
So does your association, are they pretty much on the same page with those priorities that you just mentioned? Or Because I'm kind of thinking that, you know, the soccer fields, as we call them, need some attention. And that was what we were thinking, but you didn't mention that, so is the athletic association pretty much on the same page with you, the
Yeah,
priorities you just mentioned?
The soccer field is in that proposal, you know, like getting to the level, cause the farther towards that creek you get, the worse it gets. I mean, it's like.
So it's in the proposal of actually smoothing out all the
I believe it is.
bridges?
I have to go back and check, but the soccer field is in there, and, mainly just leveling off that field, so eventually when we are able to get like football and soccer fields in there, we don't have to worry about twisted ankles and, you know what I'm saying?
So if you put that investment into leveling off that field, would you protect it with some kind of blocking so people wouldn't drive across it then? Would you be able to protect?
That would be kind of a permanent thing, and I would think that would be, cause that's y'all's property. So if it's gonna be something permanent in there, it'd probably be something the county would have to do, I would think. I mean, like our soccer goals and stuff, we just put them out and take them out, but if it's permanent, that may be, you know what I'm saying? Since it's gonna be something permanent there that can't be moved, it may be something that we can't do. You know, that would be to look at that. I'm not sure how that works.
I guess where I'm confused there, of course, the county did buy the property, but did we not give it to the Athletic Association to use?
There's a memorandum of understanding that's in the works with Charles Parks Jr.
Okay, see, we
correct?
haven't got it yet.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. So at that point, I would think it would, you know, it would belong to them, whatever happened there, you know.
Yeah, once we get that.
Yeah, sure.
But we got just a lot of, I mean, we sit down and kind of everybody went over some different ideas of what we need and, you know.
Well, the main thing is that you guys in the athletic association are all on the same page.
Yeah.
If the county commission is gonna direct this money there, we want them to, you know, they know better, I guess, than
Oh, yeah,
anybody
absolutely.
where the money needs to go.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, a lot of our stuff has been neglected for so many years simply because of funding, you know, because a lot of stuff we need now is expensive.
So we know that lighting is $750,000.
Right.
And this $250,000 seems like just a drop in the bucket compared to that, but is this really gonna can this help you get started? I mean,
Well-
I think this is just the beginning, really. I don't, you know, that we have to come up with more money at the county level somewhere, but this isn't gonna be a fix-all for
Oh,
you.
no.
This is just kind of a start, right?
Yeah, I found one of our, Cape's electric one we use, Hilton Satellite. They gave us some lights that I think what we're gonna do is, we're gonna replace all the light bars. You know, leave the poles, but replace all the light bars with LED, and that way the electricity draw will be less, and it won't be as much, draw or drain on the panels, you know, and that's significantly less than it'd be like, I think the last figure I got was last year's like 118,000 for the lights and for them to come in and put everything up. You know, now that's just the lights, that doesn't, you know, the poles and the actual wiring itself, you know, it doesn't include any of that, it just includes taking the old ones down, putting the new ones up, you know, which will help a ton, because a couple of them fields are dark.
So Ricky, what the oversight committee is trying to understand is how much oversight does the county need to have of the athletic association? And so, are you 100% confident that this money is coming to you, is gonna be, every penny of it is gonna be spent in the way that the athletic association has agreed upon?
And Kendra Bucciarelli, she's our treasurer, and she'll be overseeing all that. You know, we won't, all we'll do is say, hey, here's our estimate for this, and give it to her, and she's the one that says yes, no. You know what I'm saying? She's the one that does the money part of it. I don't touch it, you know? So she's over all that. So that would be, I guess you can talk to her about the oversight, but it'll all go right straight into
The main thing is that the athletic association is all together
Yeah.
on this and how this money is being
Yeah.
sent, because like I said, we can recommend, but they
Sure.
Thank you, Ricky. I noticed that the representatives from the Historical Society have come in.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any information to share about the decks that you want to recondition or refurbish?
Well, it's the front porch and it's the lower deck and the upper deck too, the porches. they were replaced, but there've been some work done to them, so the structure is sound of it, or is it's not like it's a major reconstruction, it's just repair. And, it's both floors needed, and some of the posts need replacing.
Can you do it for $80,000?
I don't know, I'm not sure.
You
The
don't
price
have
of
any
lumber right
estimates or
now,
anything?
and we looked at different things other than lumber, because it's not on the historic register or anything, so it doesn't have to be exactly historically done. But it needs to be done professionally, soundly, and securely, but, it's not, that has to be done a certain way, that way, but it's a lot of lumber
Yeah.
involved in it, and we're gonna support the floor choices better too, with more of those too. So, and then, there's always something that needs to be done to an old
Yeah.
house, it was built in 1888, so.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'm sure it'll take all of it to fix it, I'm sure.
Well, the good news, Mr. Chairman, was that the structure was sound underneath the decks. So we were worried that we were gonna have to have something to pin the decks to, but it seems really solid. So that may get us close to the $80,000 that you asked about.
Sure. Yeah, I would think so. It don't take much to get up to $80,000.
No.
And whatever's left, your vice chairman there can pay for it.
She's the one that takes care of the money.
She's the one that takes care of the money? Oh, well.
She's the treasurer, she takes care of the
Oh,
money.
well.
But,
I guess we can trust her.
with so many books, we can only sell so many books to pay for it, so that's why we don't sell enough books.
I got
$20 a piece doesn't go very far when you're buying lumber. That's what you're buying
that's a
2x4
fact.
now, probably.
I agree with that 100%.
But we just
Yeah, I
still have
think-
books for sale too. We do have books for sale. We put that word in there too. So.
Maybe, Cindy needs to turn the camera around and get that.
You want to do a pitch?
That's okay.
You don't want to do a pitch, Steve?
All right. You got any questions for today? All right.
Thank you, Ms. Heather.
Thank you, Miss Heather. Thank you, Miss Martin. Thank y'all for coming.